Welcome back to the podcast, guys. I'm very excited to introduce our guest today. As a lot of you guys probably have a lot of goals for the 2025 year. I know we're in February already, but a lot of you guys probably have working out and running as a goal. So we're very excited to talk with our guest today. He's a very successful long distance runner who ran for Corban University and now is part of a club that he's going to tell us more about today. What we're going to learn today is we're going to learn how to improve our endurance during running, how to run faster, and just how to run the correct way. And we're just going to learn a lot today. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to our guest today, Rob. And I'm not even going to try to say his last name because I already forgot. So I'll have him introduce himself and we can go from there.
What's up, man? Good. Thanks for coming through. And is your mic on too? Yep.
Yep,
on.
we're good.
Yeah.
All right, is that good?
Yeah. Let's start with introducing yourself, where you're from, and we can go from there.
Yeah. So my name's Robert Swoboda. That's how you pronounce that.
Swoboda.
It's Polish spelling. It stems from Czechoslovakia. And so my grandfather, who just recently passed in September, came from Poland in 43, I think, to the States. And so he and like 16 other siblings.
All at the same time.
Yeah, all at the same time. It was crazy, man.
Oh, damn.
Dang.
And yeah, so I'm actually from Northern California. So a small town in Northern California called Redwood Valley.
Redder Valley?
Redwood.
Oh,
Valley.
Redwood Valley.
Yeah, Redwood Valley.
Is that where the Redwoods is from?
So just north of us is Willits, and they call it Gateway to the Redwoods, which, I mean, implies that, yeah, that's where the Redwoods are. So, like, you have to go through Willits into, like, Garberville and up that ways, and eventually you'll hit the Redwoods.
Oh, have you ever been to the Redwoods?
No, but I heard they're pretty cool.
Dude, they're massive.
Yeah?
They're huge.
I heard that just several years ago, there used to be, I think, a redwood. I don't know if it was shaped this way naturally or what, but you would be able to drive a car underneath there, and I think it fell.
It's not shaped naturally.
Oh, is it not?
No. They cut it out, but it is like wide enough to fit like most, even camper vans through it.
But something happened to it, didn't it? I think it it broke off during bad weather or something like that.
No, it's still there.
Oh, is it still there?
It's still there.
Yeah, no, you should go sometime, dude.
I know. My daughter wanted to go this summer. But
Oh, really?
It's great, and summer's like one of the best times to
Oh,
go.
yeah?
Believe it or not, like not all of California is always hot,
yeah.
and that's one of the areas like it's usually like 65, 75 in the summer, just because it's pretty close to the coast.
Okay. All right.
But I would almost consider that more Oregon than California, wouldn't you? That's pretty, like, a lot of rain and stuff. Or is it more warmer than...
That area gets more rain than most of California,
Yeah.
but it's not like here.
Okay.
It still gets sun quite frequently. But yes, that is the rainier side of California.
Where'd you go to high school?
So I went to high school in two spots, actually. First, my underclassmen years, I went to Willits High School in Willits, California. And then my junior year, we moved to Redwood Valley. And that's when I went to UCI High, and that's where I graduated from.
Okay.
That's really where I started actually getting more success towards running as well.
Did you start running in high school, or were you running in middle school as well?
Yeah, so California is so massive that they don't really have middle school programs. Like, they have, like, club programs that are more, like, community-based. But where I'm from, it's, like, a football area. So there was a lot more football middle school programs than there were running middle school programs. So I started running in high school.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, we have a lot of running programs here, middle school. I did cross country in 8th grade, but I did track and field all through middle school. Mm-hmm. But I think it was available all through middle school as well. I just never did cross country.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy seeing like how big running is here in Oregon. Like you hear like the University of Oregon, like the whole Prefontaine thing, and like people like are really into running. It's like, okay, I get it. But like, no, it's like much larger than a lot of people think.
Yeah, I was just telling these guys before you got here, we were talking about Prefontaine. I was telling them that we're really rich in running history here in Oregon. We've had a lot of the best runners come here. Well, dude,
Yeah,
when you
I
were
know
when
that.
you were in high school, it wasn't long distance, but you went to school with the U.S. Olympic gold medal runner. No,
Oh, yeah.
what was his name? Ryan Bailey.
Ryan Bailey, yeah.
Okay.
Ryan Bailey,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah.
think we had a couple. I think we had a girl too from McKay that also went to the Olympics, but that was for 100-meter dash. I think. I guess from our area, not a lot of very long distance runners, but we've had a lot of successful runners in around
Well,
here.
even from Tualatin, there's an active professional runner who runs for Hoka. I forget his name, but yeah, he's actually I get to race him actually in like 8 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he'll be at the U.S. Half Champs.
Where's this gonna be at?
It's Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, it's gonna be in Georgia.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Dang. That'll be a good race then,
Dude.
huh?
Yeah.
Matchup. It's a good matchup.
Yeah, I mean maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a little bit better than I am.
Yeah.
But
I just think it's cool because you guys are local, right?
Well, I think he trains in Arizona now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, there's not so like a lot of the like professionals, especially marathoners and like long distance runners, they'll move to elevation or they'll do long stints in elevation because you can build a lot better endurance at high elevation.
Did you know about that? The elevation
Yeah.
stuff?
Well, I mean, I mean, I watch soccer. It's the same thing. So
Mhm.
anybody that, for example, if you go to Mexico City, a lot of the teams that go play there, they can't handle the altitude. Or if they go to Bolivia, they can't handle it. Even though Bolivia is one of the worst teams in South America, they always end up beating like Argentina and Brazil because even if they have Messi in them, they can't do it.
Yeah, there's so much more aerobically fit.
Dang. No, I had learned that from boxers. A lot of boxers had said that they would go to, like, I guess, one of the highest elevations places in California, or well, I guess in our country is in Big Bear, California.
Yeah, Big Bear. Yeah.
And I know that a lot of very competitive athletes will practice there because of the elevation specifically.
In California, Mammoth is a huge spot too.
Mammoth.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say your elevation in Northern California was that similar to what we have here?
Yeah, it's pretty close to what we got
normal,
here.
I guess.
Yeah, it's like maybe 100 feet discrepancy. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not much.
Not much of a difference. So if running wasn't really big, was it big when you were in high school?
No, actually, both Willits and UCI High had very low seasons
Really?
in their history that when I was in high school.
One of the things about running is that they say that running is really a level of what did I tell you earlier? It's a pain sport. It's who can handle the most pain.
Yeah.
So I mean, what motivated you to become a runner if it wasn't really that like a popular of a sport in high school?
Well, how I got into running is actually kind of a funny story. So I actually wanted to play football, but I was like 4'11", 93 pounds, soaking wet, and that's after a cheeseburger, right? Like
In high school?
Yeah, like going into high school, I was really small, and I went to the coach at Willits, and I was like, "Man, I want to play football." And he's like, "Dude, I wouldn't even put you in as like third string kicker. You're gonna get killed out here." Because I think there's like a weight like limit. You have to weigh a certain amount in order to play football, and I did not hit that criteria. So he's like, "You should go join cross country." And for those of you who don't know, cross country is a team sport that requires 7 people in order to field a team. A full team is 7 people. A minimum team is 5 people. I was like the 7th man to make the full team. So as a freshman, I immediately made varsity just because of default. And so I met with the high school coach there. And we went for like a 3-mile run. He's like, "Man, you're not even breaking a sweat. You should really join the team." I was like, "I don't really want to do this, but sure, why not?" And my parents were the kind of parents that like, "Hey, when you commit to something, you commit to it fully." And so I went to the first day of practice, and I mean, yeah, it hurt, right? Because I went from like couch to like 5-mile run, which was probably not the smartest move, but I started running and I just fell in love with it. It was just one of those things like, man, it just felt right? Like it's something clicked. And then we got to our first race, and they had to field me in the varsity race because we had barely enough we had just enough to field a varsity team. And I mean, for lack of a better term, I just took off. Like it felt great. It was a 2-mile race. I think I ran in like 11 minutes. So for an elite level runner, that's not that fast. But for someone who like has been running for like 4 weeks and has no clue what the sport is and how it works, like that's pretty good. And then eventually it got to the point where like I started to build fitness, and I actually wound up making it past our like league or our conference or our districts. I think you guys call them districts here in Oregon, where it's like the local schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it conferences or league meets. And then from there you go to like sectionals, and then from sectionals you go to state. So like California has an extra step, and I wound up making it to like the state qualifier, and I actually placed really well. I actually came like 4 or 5 spots away from qualifying for state as a freshman, and so I was like, okay, this is probably something that I should stick with because I'm good at it, and from there I was like, okay, well, I also want to do something that's a little more like physical, as if running wasn't physical enough.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point I was like, okay, well, let me just do wrestling because that sounds like fun as well, and at least they have a weight class for me. And then from there it's like, oh, and I really just used that to stay in shape. It was just something that was fun to do to keep my mind off of running, because when you like put your mind into running all the time, like you can get burnt out pretty quick. Especially at that age. So it's good to have another outlet. But yeah, I just kind of found early success it wasn't hard to do in the area that I was at because there wasn't a super competitive field, especially at the school, but it was just something that I just found success in and I enjoyed.
I remember, so you said that was 2 miles, right?
Yeah, the first race that I ever did was like a 2-mile race.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did it go higher than the 2-mile race?
Like the next week.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it was a 5K or something?
Yeah. Typically in high school it's 5K, and it ranges.
3K and 5Ks, right?
Well, so here they have like a JV 3K. In California, everybody runs 5K.
Oh.
Everybody, like boys, girls, everybody runs a 5K.
Mm-hmm.
And so like occasionally you'll have invites that have special distances. So like you'll go to like the Viking invite, and that has like a 3,200 meter race or a 2-mile race for like their like sophomore or freshman or whatever, like the JV team. And then or like maybe it's like a season opener where they only do a 2-mile race. And then as the season kicks off, everything's pretty standard at a 5K.
Dang, I remember my first run that I did. We didn't really. You say your first practice, you guys ran like 5 miles. Dude, we didn't run really at all like that. I remember the longest I had ever run was at a cross country meet. And I had never ran that much in my life. And I remember that I was just cursing my coach's name in my head because she told me it wasn't going to be hard. And then like halfway in, I couldn't breathe and I was like hurting. And then I was just like cursing her name in my head. And I'm like, why did I listen to her? I shouldn't have signed up for this shit. And then at the end, I did pretty good. And I was like, all right, that wasn't too bad. I'm like, maybe I could do this one more time.
Yeah, it's that gets you. Right? It's like, okay, I survived. So might as well keep moving, right?
Might as well keep moving. I'm like, yeah, that wasn't too bad.
So it probably hyperbolated the 5 miles. It probably wasn't that far. It was probably closer to 2 or 3 miles to start out because, like, again, I was a freshman. I came like literally off the couch into training, and so the coach that I had there at Willits was actually a little more in tune with like what people could do, and he was a little better of a coach. And so, but as it progressed, it turned into 5 and 6 mile runs.
I remember I went to McKay, and when we did cross country my freshman year, there was only that you say that you need seven people to make a team. Mm-hmm. There was like 10 of us, maybe 11 of us. We had a short bus everywhere we would go. So it was so like demoralizing because we would go to these track meets and there was these schools that would come with like 2 freaking full-size buses of cross country runners.
And there's like 30 or 40 kids.
And there's like packing, and then there's us in our short bus with like 10 people walking out of the short bus.
Yeah.
But it was demoralizing watching them because it was all on points based. So like, dude, we don't got no chance compared to all these guys. And I was the same way too. I don't even remember how tall I was, but I mean, I highly doubt I was really more than 5 foot when I was a freshman in high school. Yeah. And you'd see all these guys, these like juniors and seniors. These guys are like already like freaking 6 foot and just like huge,
and they're fast too.
Super fast.
They've been doing it for a while. Yeah. And it's interesting because like certain things happen to certain people. In my neck of the woods, it wasn't like we were in a super competitive conference. Like California is pretty competitive already. And our conference wasn't heavily competitive. Like you had like really like standout runners that did really well. And like to make the top 10 in the conference was difficult. But generally most of the pack was pretty far back. And so unfortunately for me, like early on, I found success as a freshman. I was third in the conference as a freshman. And so in high school. And so it was one of those things like, okay, I know where I could be. So for those who are like intimidated about like being around the big guys, if you're younger, or like seeing the top dogs and like fearing that you can't compete with them, don't let that get to you, because at the end of the day, like a 3-mile run at 15 minutes or a 3-mile run at 18 minutes, whatever you race, like it's still the same distance. It's still going to be just as hard, right? You kind of have to focus on where you're at. And it's not really about beating the other people. It's about beating yourself today, right? So like you shouldn't really worry about all the other people around you, because they may have a bad day and you can beat them, or they may have a great day and you'll be nowhere near them. And that's not going to matter, because what you should really focus on is like how you compete compared to where you were a week ago or where you were yesterday.
That's
That's
good.
yeah, that's good. I like that, because you're competing.
As much
You're
as
competing
like,
against yourself.
yeah, as much as cross country is a team sport, like you all work together to get the lowest score. It's still an individual sport, and so it's nice to have that camaraderie. But it is still an individual sport. And the nice thing too is like even those top dogs, I can promise you most of those top dogs are gonna like. I mean, unless you're like super annoying and like kind of irritating to be around, but like they're gonna be like pretty friendly. Like they're gonna be encouraging. Like if you PR and you tell me that you PR, like they're gonna be like, congratulations, man. Like if they didn't PR, if they didn't have a great race, they're still gonna be happy for you, even though they were minutes ahead of you.
How tall are you?
Now I'm like 5'10", 5'9". Well, my wife would say I'm 5'9", because she's 5'10". But I'm gonna squeak out. I'm saying 5'10". She's 5'10" and a half.
He says he's 5'6", but his wife says he's 5'5". Same thing. So we know what you're talking about. Do you think that height matters
to the event? To the event that you race in? Yes, to an extent. As you get into like the more elite levels, like you'll see height tends to separate people out a bit, just because people find their event. And it's not so much the height that dictates it, it's just how the athlete is. So you'll come across anomalies where like someone who's like 6'3" is great at the marathon. They just happen to have a different physiological capability and maybe a good aerobic base. And so like the more elite you get, the more your body type and the more your fitness will dictate where you go.
That makes sense.
It does.
So you're in high school, and I mean, as the years go on, I mean, you said you were like 4 spots away from going to state your freshman year. I'm sure it improved throughout the years. So when did you start thinking about where you wanted to go to college, to run for college? When did that come on?
Yeah, so the whole route to college thing was more of an escape to get away from small town California. And I knew that was probably going to be the only way to get out, right? And so I just kind of worked at getting faster so that I could. But that really didn't like start clicking until like applications were due for college. So I didn't really think about it until like it was on the edge of too late. Because like I'll be honest, I was like I'm kind of like I don't hit the stereotype for cross country. I wasn't a fantastic student. Like most of your cross country and track and field like athletes are phenomenal students. So we're talking like 4.0 or maybe even like maybe extra credits or like a 5.0 or maybe a 4.0 unweighted with like whatever extra credits they can get, right? I was definitely not that. But I did like I worked hard towards keeping my GPA up. I worked hard like to getting a good score with the SAT the best that I could, so that I could get into college. And so I kind of took a look at various different schools. One thing I wish I did is I wish I did more research. And one thing I wish I was more studious about was researching college. Now that be said, like I'm not necessarily disappointed in my choice in Corban. I definitely think that I would go back again just because I love the school so much. But there might be some things that I might have considered differently.
What are good things for someone that's planning on going to college for a sport to consider?
Keep your grades up. Definitely it is like you are a student first and then an athlete. While you're at school, you have to have that mentality because otherwise you won't remain eligible. If you think you're an athlete first and you prioritize that, then your grades are going to falter and you won't be able to compete. So make sure you stay focused on your grades, and then really take a look into your teammates. Your potential teammates on the team that you're going to be going to. Do you get along with them? Because those are the people you're going to be spending the most time around.
But how would you know that if you're coming from Northern California and these guys are already in Oregon?
Yeah, you do team visit. You do college visits. So scouting visits or whatever they may be. So I came to Corban and I met with the team and I did a couple runs with them and spent time with the team to make sure the personalities matched. Now I'll admit that wasn't my initial intent. Because I didn't exactly know what I was getting myself into with this whole higher education thing. But I just liked the idea of not being in California. And I think I was willing to make whatever happened work.
Yeah. Okay.
Not to say that I don't like Northern California. I do like Northern California. I actually go
Yeah.
back there pretty frequently and I stay with a couple of friends of mine and my best friends from there. So I think now that I'm older, it's man, I really miss it down there. But in the moment, I think I was just ready to get away and be my own individual person.
But you took that step, so
Yeah.
Teammates is one thing that you would recommend
teammates is
people
one.
look into.
Yeah, making sure that the school has the major that you're interested in. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. I came in saying that, okay, I want to be kinesia major. Which is physical therapy and things like that and athletic training. And I took AMP, which was a 300 level course for a freshman, a college freshman, which was way too advanced for me, especially at the academic skill set that I was at. And I failed that thing with flying colors. It was atrocious. And then so I quickly realized okay, so kinesiology is not it for me. And then I was you know what, I'll go undetermined or whatever it is for a little while. And then after that, I was okay, well now let me try English. And then that was way too much reading. And sometimes I think I'm a little dyslexic because it was bad. It took me forever to get a simple homework assignment done. And then from there, I was okay, well English is not it. Let's try business. Let's try accounting. And that was way too much time sitting behind a computer doing way too much math. And then I was okay, well, that's not it. And so I went with management and leadership. And so that eventually stuck. But kind of know what you want to do at least a little bit or in the general area and make sure that school kind of focuses and centralizes on those aspects. Because like I said, those are going to be things that you're going to be spending a lot of your time doing. And then also find a way to get into good study groups. I didn't take advantage of that, getting into good study groups with my cohort or whoever was in my major. And I think that was one of the downfalls of my grades in college was I didn't take the time to study with people and people who could build me up. So if you can find a good a good team with personalities that match you, and then if you can find a student body that also matches you, those are going to be your key things because college is. Some people say college really isn't about grades. You're gonna apply for jobs and they'll ask for your GPA, but they're not gonna care. They're really not gonna care. College is more about the time where you're learning how to deal with other people and learning how to manage your time and learning how to get your responsibilities done. It's one of those areas where you're responsible for your own bedtime and you realize you're not old enough to be responsible for your own bedtime.
Does the coach matter?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another good point because Corban's coach, Norm Burney, who recruited me, absolutely fantastic guy. Could have sold ice to an Eskimo. So he was a fantastic recruiter, and he had a good assistant coach behind him to run the workouts. And I wish I had put more thought into that, because initially, like, the coaches and I didn't click, and it wasn't like a personality difference. It was like I was just used to training a certain way, and it was hard for me to switch to another way. And so I should have paid more attention to that. And like I said, it's not something I regret or anything. I regret not listening to the coaches. And so it's always best to assume that the coaches have your best mind, but you also have to make sure that you are paying attention to the coach's personality too. Are they more worried about the championship or whatever like accolades the school can get, or are they more worried about who you are and how you develop as a person? Coach Bernie and Brent Faschholz at the time, who was the assistant coach there running the workouts, they cared about who I was and how I developed as a person more so than what the program could get. I mean, obviously that was something that was on their mind, but it wasn't on the forefront.
You had said that you guys didn't agree on the way of training because you were used to training one way, and they coach a different way. So now, how do you mentally change your mind into training into a way that you don't necessarily 100% agree with?
Yeah, so racing and training are going to be completely different things. So training focuses on the science behind running, because running is a very scientific sport. Like, there's a lot of markers where you'd be like, if you run X workout at X pace with X amount of rests, you'll be able to run X amount of time in X events, right? And that format follows pretty in line. And there's one variable that I think that the science of running cannot calculate, and that's human will. And human will is the only variable that will change everything there, especially in races, because you have different athletes with different competitive drive. So you have athletes who are very happy sitting in second place, and they'll think, "Oh, I'm in second, and I'm happy with second because it's better than third, it's better than fourth, it's better than fifth. Yeah, I'd like to have first, but that's too hard, or I don't want to do that. I'm happy with where I'm at." And then you have other athletes who they may be in seventh, right? But they're like, "No, I want to win this thing." So their tactic may just be sitting back there and waiting to the end to kick. It all depends on the type of race it is, the type of athlete, and that's the human will, and that's the art of the sport, right? So there's this great divide, especially right now. It's like, okay, is running a science or is it an art? And I genuinely think it's both. And so there's a lot of science in the training. But when it comes to racing and performance, it's an art. And it's up to each person. So racing is a whole thing in itself. But when it comes to training specifically, you take a look at an athlete who is used to training a certain way, and they know how their body works, and they know how things have worked in the past. They typically think that, oh, if this works, why fix it, right? And they don't take into consideration the years or the wisdom of the coach, who is, typically older than they are, and has had experience on multiple different levels with multiple different training types. They've had that time, especially when you're coming from high school to college. And not all high schools are like this, because obviously we have really high quality high schools in the US. But most high schools, it was, oh yeah, I ran cross country in middle school, so I'll coach the team, right? So not all high school coaches are perfect coaches. Doesn't mean they're bad coaches. They're getting kids involved in the sport, which is fantastic, and they're keeping it fun and they're keeping it entertaining for those kids so that they stay in the sport. However, developing them as athletes may not be the best thing for those athletes. So their training style for the high school coach may be very different than a college coach. A college coach is going to be a lot more methodical on training, and they're going to have more plans set. It's going to be like, you need to do this, you need to do that, in order to be ready for this workout, or in order to be ready for this race. And so in high school, I was very used to going out and running every run the same exact way, because that's how my high school coach worked it. And it worked for me. It is kind of like microwaving my fitness, is what some people call it. Is like, it was like nothing but tempo runs every day. Like, it wasn't like a ton of mileage. It was like really low mileage, but it was just a lot of quality running. And that worked because in high school, like, your body's still young, developing, and really resilient. And so that type of training worked. when you get into college, your body's older typically, and it has to take a switch on how to recover. And I didn't want to make that switch because I knew that this worked for me. If this works for me, it will always work for me. And that's not the case. And that was my immaturity taking charge over what the coach was doing. And that's where the flaw was. It wasn't the flaw in the coach's personality. It wasn't the flaw in the coach's training. Brent is a fantastic coach. He's actually now a head coach at another college, and that team's doing quite well. But I had the immaturity to not listen to him, and that's where I found myself getting hurt, running inconsistently, and I wasn't able to flourish as much as I could have if I had just listened to him, because my body was changing and it was developing differently. And so you really have to take a step back of who the coach is, what wisdom they have, what experience they have in the sport, and really kind of go with it. And so now there is this point where you need to have this communication with your coach, like saying, hey, my legs are super tired of this workout, or I'm having a hard time recovering on this cycle. So you do have to have that communication, because then the coach can be like, okay, if you're feeling this way, then we need to change your recovery run a bit, or we need to change your interval amount, or there's like lots of little things that they can down. There's the science behind it, right? Okay, you're feeling this way, so we need to tweak this. And because we tweak this, that works. And so that's the science, and that's where the training sets. So you really have to take into context like the coach's experience.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things as a coach is sometimes the kids just it's quite difficult to have them listen, basically. Like he was mentioning, because I do soccer. I'm a soccer coach, and translating what you want them to do, a lot of times they do it, but there's some times where they're just like I know more, or
because they also they're saying, do I really have to go cool down?
Yeah, exactly. Do I have to do this, coach? Do we? I was like, no, just do it.
They could be also competing in a private league, and then they go to high school and they're trained one way over there, but then you're asking them to train a different way, so they're like.
And I think that's what happens. A lot of the times that's the majority of the things is they're playing for club, and then when they go to high school, they're like, okay, no, that's not how we do it. And then they start comparing, and it's like, no. But it's the mentality. I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to the mentality, but it is difficult.
Yeah. Especially, and that's another thing too. Is like you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Where where you're like, okay, well, I really like this coach because he makes it fun. Well, I really like this coach because he makes it hard. I really like this coach because I'm getting better, and I really like these drills, right?
Practice is going to be easy today. It's Coach Jorge.
Just run.
That's not an easy practice.
No. We get out 15 minutes early. Yeah. Yes, it's Coach Jorge.
Scrimmage hall practice.
Going from high school to college and getting these coaches that, like you said, have more experience with a higher level of running, was there any like little change to your running that you did that made a big impact? Sometimes like the smallest changes that you don't think about can make the biggest impact. Did you have anything like that?
Little change? No.
It
was a big change.
Okay.
I was not a high volume athlete. And so when I say high volume, I'm talking about miles per week. In high school, I think I ran like at most 40 miles a week. And that's like on the very low end, especially for when you're training for a 5K or 10K, at least at elite level. If you're like, I say hobby jogging, it's not meant to be like to put someone down. It's like, but if you're doing it for recreation or you're doing it for fun, like you want to do like the Disney 5K because that's a fun event. Mm-hmm. Running should be fun. Like you should find enjoyment in the sport. So don't let like times and things like dictate how you enjoy the sport, because you're just going to dig yourself into a hole you can't get out. But like 34 miles is fine for someone who's just wanting to do a 5K to do a 5K. But for me, who's trying to be at an elite level, I needed to change a lot about who I was. So I needed to go from a hobby jogger to an elite athlete. And so that required a lot of change. Now, I didn't do all that change all at once, because that's how you get hurt. So you can't go from running a 30, 40 mile a week to suddenly running 85, 90 miles a week, because your body can't take it. There's some athletes who are magical and can do that. I'm not one of those athletes, and those athletes are very far and few between. And And so it was very progressive. My first year of college, I went from running 30, 40 miles a week to running 60, 65 very inconsistently. And that's something that definitely hurt me in the long run. I got better just because I was getting older and my body was changing still. But I don't think I would have developed as good if I remained consistent. So if I had to take that large change and condense it to one small aspect, I would say consistency is that little thing that made the largest difference. If you can be consistent, even if it is small progression, if you can be consistent, that's going to pay dividends in the end. And so, because getting out and doing a mile every day, and then the next week getting out and doing 2 miles every day, that's kind of a big jump for some people, maybe not for others. But if you can do that and make that small progression every day and be consistent at that, your fitness level will go from a steady slope to suddenly a sharp incline. So to the large changes I had to make should really be boiled down to they were consistency.
What about your running form? Did that change from high school to college?
Yes, but only because my like I said, my body's changed as I guess I got older. Like puberty hits and it hits like a brick, right? And so before, like, my core was super weak, and like I had strong legs, and then there's points where my core was super strong and I had weak legs. So it was kind of this very like sporadic bit. And so my form has changed over time. Relatively, it's been fairly smooth. Like I'll have a lot of people that I know from back home who are coaching me. They're just like, Robert, you look fantastic. You look super smooth. Um, and that was as a high school runner, but they were comparing me to other high school runners. Same thing in college, right? Like I probably was a lot smoother than most high school runners in college just because my body changed. But it was still like my form had maintained smooth, and I really don't do a whole lot of form focused as much as some people may have to. And here's the best way I could describe running form, right? Like you shouldn't be sitting in a chair the whole time. So if you find that your hips are falling and sitting, right, then we need to adjust some things. You probably need a stronger core. You probably need stronger glutes. So work on those squats. So you should be more upright. So I'm 5'10", and I should run like I'm 6 foot. I'm trying to run like I'm 2 inches taller than I actually am. So like I'm trying to be upright. My chest is up. I am like almost picturing like I have a kite tied to my chest. And so my chest is up. That's going to allow my chest to breathe more. And then you can really boil running down to one motion. Okay. And I'll kind of work a way down. So you have your right side and your left side, right? They're going to do the same thing. They're obviously going to do it at opposite times, but they're going to do the same thing. So that cuts all of your motions into half. So now you have your right arm and let's say it's right arm, right leg, right? So you have your right arm, right leg, both moving forward, both moving back. Okay. Well, your leg is going to do what your arm tells it to do. So like, it's almost like you got strings attached to your elbow and your knee, or your elbow and your feet, however you run. Typically depends on your form, right? But usually there's an invisible string that's attached that your body just naturally has. So whatever my right arm does, my left leg is going to follow. Okay. And so now instead of focusing on my legs, I can focus on my arm because that's what's controlling everything else. Now, your arm will naturally fall forward when you run. So really you can just focus on pushing your arm back. And if you do that, everything's gonna work. So if you can focus on pushing your elbow back and your arms back, then usually you'll see your form improve a bit more. You'll have a higher leg carry. Your arm carriage will be a little bit better, and it'll be a lot more relaxing. And the effort to efficiency is going to be way different than if you're like just struggling on powering and hitting the ground and trying to muscle through it. So like your long runs, your recovery runs, they should be super easy. Like you should be able to talk. And like those are times to focus on making sure you're not hunched over, making sure you're not sitting on, the invisible chair while you're running. Try to stand up tall, try to, try to present yourself like you're confident, because you should be confident when you're running. Like there's not a lot of people, like as big as the running community is, there's not a lot of people who do it. And so what you're doing is something that's fantastic and amazing. And so you should be proud of what you're doing and be confident in that. And it should show in your form.
It sounds really simple. Is that something that most runners fail at? That
fail at like what?
Like the string, invisible string with your elbow following your knee.
I don't have enough experience to know if most athletes fail at that, because I haven't seen enough athletes do it. But I feel like physiologically your body naturally does that. Like it's just something it just naturally does. And so there's like heel strikers, there's midfoot strikers, and there's forefoot strikers, which is like you're on the ball of your foot. And I'm a forefoot striker, so I'm like always on my toes. Like my heels very rarely touch the ground, and that's just how my form is. And usually at an elite level, that's the most optimal form to have.
For your heels not to touch the ground.
Typically, I don't suggest it for everybody. But you'll typically find elite level athletes typically tend to be forefoot runners. If you're not a forefoot runner, if you tend to hit on your heels, you tend to hit on your midfoot, that's okay. If you want to start working faster, work on trying to be a little more midfoot or a little more forefoot. The best way to do that is shorten your stride. People think like, well, I'm running long distances, so I want to try to get as much of the ground coverage as I can in each step. That's a great way to hurt your knees, hurt your hamstrings, to get yourself injured, because you're putting too much focus on trying to grab as much ground as you possibly can. When really like the idea, like running is a one-legged sport, which you're on one leg at a time. And so when you're stepping, you're not trying to grab the ground, you're trying to catch yourself and then push it away. So your foot should fall underneath you rather than in front of you.
I've heard that if you run a lot with your heels, the over time that just kind of
well, wears on shoes too,
right? Well, they say that eventually you're gonna have more problems than your average runner.
And so because you're putting a lot of like stoppage power
as you get older.
Instead of like pushing away from yourself, you're like stopping yourself, because like it's like
or like a bounce.
Yeah, it's like a negative momentum. So you should. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was saying you should be focused more on moving forward rather than like up and down or.
Have you had any injuries yourself?
Oh yeah. My weak point is actually my hips, and so I do a lot of physical therapy to make sure that my hips stay strong, because those are where 99% of your stability muscles are when running. And so if you can have a strong hip and strong core, you're usually going to be mostly injury free. Like obviously, like there's some other things to change about form that will help with injury prevention. Like I've had some knee issues here, I've had some IT band issues there, and things like that. And that's usually because I've either overworked some of my major muscle groups, like my hamstrings and my quads, or it could be from under efficiency with my hips. And so that's usually where I find where most of my injuries are from lack of strength in my hips.
Yeah. How many miles do you run a week, you said, or train?
So it depends. So right now, because I have a race coming up, my mileage is actually taking a taper. So I'll probably be at like 75, 80 miles this week. And then next week I'll be like closer to 60 to 70. But in the height of my training season, when I'm like actively training hard, I'm anywhere between 95 and 100.
How does that look? Like, let's say in a week, how many days, if you do rest, do you rest 1 day a week? Do you not rest? Or what is the recovery process?
Yeah. So when you get to higher mileage, it depends on the type of athlete you are. But typically, for me personally, what I found when I get past that 95 mile mark, I need to run every day. And so a rest day might look like a 6, 7, maybe 8 mile run.
Okay.
And that's it for the day. I'll do one session that day. And that's usually on like a Saturday before a long run, or like usually the day before a long run. Excuse me. But yeah, so my training schedule at like peak, like Monday, I'm out early for like I call it a shakeout run. So it's like 5 miles between like 6:40 and 6:20, like somewhere around there. And it's out from my house into Minto Brown. I actually have a turnaround spot. It's literally a spot on a tree that I'll go, I'll see it, and then I'll look at my watch and it clicks over at 2.5, and then I'll just head home. And then I'll go about my day. I'll have a couple meetings for work, and then I'll get stuff set. And then in the afternoon, I'll actually head back over to Corban because I have a good connection with the coach there still. By the way, the coaching staff has changed at Corban since I was a freshman, and that's actually where I saw most of my successes when that coaching staff changed. And because it just was one of those things, like I finally got smart and decided to listen. But anyway, I'll go over to Corban. I usually run with the team there. And that's where I do most of my afternoon miles. So that's between 10 and 12 miles. At we usually run that same pace, that 6:30 to 6:20 pace for a recovery run. I'll do that on Monday, and sometimes Tuesday if I'm not working out. So my workout days fluctuate a bit between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I'll have a recovery day Monday. Usually I'll work out again on Tuesday, and that's usually when I do like long interval work. So you're looking at like mile repeats, which everybody who has done mile repeats knows that those are one of the hardest workouts you can do. But so that's usually what I'll wind up doing is mile repeats on Tuesday. Wednesday is another recovery day, so it'll look a lot like Monday. Tuesday is a short interval day. Thursday is a short interval day. So that's like 400 meter repeats or 800 meter repeats. And usually on a longer rest. And then Friday is a recovery day. So that looks a lot like Monday and Wednesday. Saturday, if I'm not doing a workout again, that'll be the easy day. So that's where I'm doing like 8-9 miles. Maybe if I'm ahead on mileage, I'll do like 5. And then Sunday is a long run day.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lot of running.
That's a lot of running.
Yeah, it is. A lot of discipline too. A lot of discipline, mental toughness.
Oh, and
everything.
there's days where I'm like, I don't want to get out.
Yeah.
So there's some days, and that's the battle. That's the battle for consistency, right? So like, yes, consistency is a small thing that you need to do in order to get better, but that's the hardest thing to do is to get out on the days, because like we're getting into in spring, right? And it's going to be raining from now until the foreseeable future. And so to go out and get out and run 10, 12 miles in the rain every day is super hard to do. Like it's a real mental grind. And so there's days I win and there's days I lose. There's days I win by like, I don't want to do this. This is awful. I'm going to get soaking wet. It's cold. It's miserable. It's windy. And I'll still get out the door and I'll still do it. And then there's other days like I've had a long day. It's like my body's tired from the workout session yesterday. I still have to go out and do 12 miles. And there's days where I'm like, I don't have it in me to do it today. And so I'll lose that day. And so it's a matter of finding a good support system to help get you out to it.
I think you hear that everywhere. A lot of professional athletes or anything you do just in general. I think that's the big difference between wanting it or kind of wanting it, right? The days that you don't want to do it is the days that you discipline yourself to do it. And I think that's where you start over time in a period in a year. I think that's where you start winning if, let's say, someone else is doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, and it's the days that you like have discipline that make champions. And so the day that you don't want to do it, even if it's not a workout, let's say it's an easy run, the days that you don't want to do that and you do it anyway, that's the day you make a champion. Yeah,
I've heard it. And then I think Usain Bolt, do you know who that is, right? Yeah, I think, I don't know if, I forget his quote, but he says like, he trains for like 4 years just to run what?
10 seconds.
10 seconds, something like that, or less, right? And it's like, and some people just can't do it and quit. And that's the difference, the mindset, right? It's being consistent, doing it when you don't want to do it. Mike Tyson says the same thing. He's like, it's doing what you hate, doing it like you love it,
Even when Kobe was training too, right? Like, Kobe had days where like he didn't want to get out, but he was still out there 3-4 hours before everybody else. And he's in the gym working drills. And you hear it all the time. Like, it's like, yeah, they'll show up for practice and Kobe's already sweating.
Yeah.
You wake up for breakfast and he's already done with his first training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you hear that from a lot of different types of athletes too. So.
That's crazy when you really think about it. The Usain Bolt thing.
Mhm.
I trained 4 years to show out 10 seconds or nine seconds.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You put in 4 years of your life just for that was 9 seconds.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's huge, man. It's a mental thing, discipline and everything. I mean, and then that's where they're great because not everyone could do it.
And one of the best ways, like not necessarily to so one of the best ways to build discipline and to help along with that process of building discipline is finding people who are around your skill set to get you out. So for a long time, it was just me training by myself, and that was hard, and that's when I lost most of those days. I'm fortunate now to have people that I can train and run with. So my training partner, who lives in Newbury, actually is where I came back from practice. We just did 10 by 800 on 2 minutes rest, and it was pouring rain during the warm up. Like it was just horrible conditions to try to stay warm in.
So you did 10 800-meter runs?
Yeah. So we did, yes. And then so in between each run, we took 2 minutes rest. And so we started.
That sounds brutal.
It was, and it really started getting hard around like lap 8. So we had if you did lap 8, you had 3 to go, right? And we worked our way from running 220 to 214s. And so it was one of those, it was a grind today. It was really hard. It wasn't the best conditions, and today was a day where I could have fallen asleep taking a nap, and that would have been far more satisfying, right? to take a nap in the moment. But now I know that doing that session is what is going to help me later on. Running is about delayed gratification. You don't do a workout or you don't do a recovery run to feel good today. It feels great afterwards. You're glad you did it, but that's not why you do it. You do it because you're working towards something, whether that's completing a 5K or getting a new PR in a 5K. You do it for that reason. And that's the beauty of the sport is everybody's working for something, even if it's completely different. And everybody's super supportive of everybody in that journey.
Mm-hmm.
I bet. What is it? What drives you? Let's say you're running and you're having a tough day, and obviously you have goals, but what is it that there's times that you're gonna be really just I don't want to do this, or what triggers you?
Yeah, so there's a lot, right? There's a few ways you can take a look at it, and there's a lot of different little things that motivate me. So one of the motivators is I want to win. I want to be the best that's out there. I want to make the U.S. I want to go to the U.S. trials. I want to win the U.S. trials. I want to make the Olympic team. That's one motivator I have. Another motivator is I don't do this professionally. I consider myself a pro athlete because I train like a professional, but I'm not paid. All of this comes out of my own pocket, and I that's another level of dedication that I have to. So I'm not going to waste all this money to just come up short. Right.
Exactly.
Another thing too is my wife is super supportive of everything that's going on. My parents have been supportive all the way since day one. I don't want to let them down. And so that's another motivator. And a third or I guess I can't see, this is why I wasn't going to school. So a fourth motivator is, John just laughed at that.
I ain't no mathematician.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't be an accountant.
Yeah.
And so,
hey, you could at that count.
So, and another reason too is I use this as a way to praise God.
Yeah.
And so, he has given me this gift to run. And I don't I don't doubt that with a shadow in my mind, right? I have this ability to do this because I'm using it as a tool to praise him. And I know that if I give my best every day, no matter what kind of day it is, he's going to be pleased. He's going to be happy because I gave him my best, because I praised him with that gift. And I want to use that gift to not bless myself with success. That's a nice attribute that I get to have, but that's not why I do it. I want to use it to bless others and share my story about that. And so when I was born emergency C-section, I was born 2 weeks early. Because I stopped moving. My mom couldn't feel me moving. I was usually pretty reactive, right? And so she's like, hey, she calls my dad, and by the way, my dad's name is Robert too, but she calls my dad and says, I haven't felt him move all day. Like I tried the usual things, nothing worked. And she's like, okay, well, let me get some sleep. Well, because he used to work at a steel mill, so he was getting off a shift. So they take me in. Oh, they take her in. I was along for the ride, and they had like I don't know how many nurses. I wasn't there counting, and so, I mean I was there, but I wasn't counting. I wouldn't be any good at it anyway. And so they're trying to get my pulse, and they're like, there was 320 plus beats in the womb, so like it was an abnormally fast heart rate. And they so like here, sign this, we're taking him now. And so I mean, and it was like pretty much they signed and they are already cutting her open, right? And so they yanked me out, and worst eviction notice I've ever had. And so anyway, I'm making myself laugh, man. So they take me away, they're trying to get my heart rate down, and things were looking really grim. Like I like really in the dire straits, like I really shouldn't be here because of everything I've had gone through medically. And it's because of the grace of God that I'm here. And I have full belief that like he has a plan for me. He has a plan for everyone. But I believe that this is a plan that he has. And so I want to praise him with this gift to run. And I want to bring others to him through it. And so because without him, I couldn't do any of this.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned the Olympic trials. I saw it on your profile too. What is it? So, what is the stages of that? Like, in order for you to go to the Olympics, because it's the 2028, right?
Yeah,
it's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, in LA. So Los Angeles. Yeah. Assuming it's not all charred up. So. And so the process usually is you qualify for the Olympic trials, you race the trials, and you go to the team. In a nutshell, that's what it is. There's a lot of other things that like convolute it because there's the U.S. standard, which you use to get into the trials, and then there's the Olympic standard, right? So that's like a time you have to hit to even like open up a spot in the Olympic team. And we're one of the few countries that still holds a traditional trials. Usually most athletes, especially the East African countries, like if they just take the top 3 times of their athletes, but their athletes are already running like 201, 203 for a full marathon. So it's nuts, man.
Go ahead.
And so we're one of the few countries that we have a trials, which is super cool. It's another opportunity for us to race and show our fitness. And it's just a fun experience, at least so that I hear. I'm about to find out, right? And so in order for the U.S. to open up all 3 spots to make an Olympic team, we have to have enough people run under the Olympic standard. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but typically that's the easiest way to do it is just have athletes run under the Olympic standard. And so if, let's say, the top American right now, Connor Mance, runs under the Olympic standard, that's 1 spot open. If his training partner, Clayton Young, runs under the standard, that's another spot open. If a third person runs under the Olympic standard, that's a 3rd spot open. So all 3 of our spots are open, and they don't have to do that at the trials. They can do that in any marathon within the qualifying window for the Olympics.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can, if the games are in 2028 and they open the window early 2027, you have from 2027 till whenever the window closes to run under the Olympic standard. U.S. is not great at the marathon, at least not like it used to be at the Olympic level, but we're on our way. We're on our up, right? And so typically how it goes, we open 1 or 2 spots and not the 3rd one. But yet sometimes we still take a 3rd person, and that 3rd person usually gets in on their world athletics score. But that's like another convoluted thing. So in a nutshell, the easiest way is get the Olympic standard, race the trials, get top 3. Easiest way to get in the Olympics. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
What would you say that your running time for a marathon would have to be to get in the top 3 spots?
It varies year to year and on the course. I think last year 2:08 got you on the team.
2:08.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's still really quick. So I would say, depending on the year, depending on the course, it's going to range anywhere between 2:06 on the fast end to 2:10 on a slow
When you
end.
say 2:06 or 2:10, what do you mean?
2 hours.
2
and
hours,
6
6 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 hours, 6 minutes, or 2 hours, 10 minutes.
For the
to like that's the range
Okay.
that you would need to be in.
What is a marathon?
Are you asking what?
Yeah, what is a
go,
marathon?
go.
Oh, a marathon is 26.2 miles.
26.2
Yeah,
miles.
26.2 miles,
Mhm.
or 42K for you Canadians.
Yeah.
And so it's actually a little over 42.
50 third state.
Yeah. And so you have to run that distance in 2 hours, 10 minutes, or 2 hours, 8 minutes, or 2 hours, 6 minutes. Anywhere in that range, depending on the course and the year, is typically what would get you on an Olympic team.
I don't know much about the Olympics, like the runners. I do like watching them, but I've noticed that a lot of the like Kenyans and Ethiopians are like usually the
top, yeah,
the top
usually
guys.
Top dogs, yeah.
What do you think about that? Like I've seen their like I came across a video where there was like a treadmill that like the average person would like jump on it and then it's just like, oh, this is the pace they jog at, and people would just fall.
Yeah, so you're opening a whole big can of worms, and I think we may need another hour. But I think it's really hard to say. There's some people say that some of them aren't clean, but they'll say that about every professional athlete.
Really? Oh, wow.
I mean, when you start critiquing people at a high level, like there's always conspiracy theories. It doesn't matter who they are. They're always like, I don't think they're clean. I don't think everybody's gonna say that about everyone. Especially like the haters are gonna say that, right? I personally, I don't really want to remark on it because I don't know. Like I don't know. There's some that may be clean. There's some that may be dirty. I don't know. But I think that America needs to step up in the marathon distance, and I'd like to be one of the guys to step up and kind of show them what, kind of give them the what for, like we did with Frank Shorter and Bill Rogers back in the heyday of American distance running.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome.
A lot of these third world countries, they don't have the same, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I watched the video on this like years ago, so I could be like totally mistaken. But I think I saw that a lot of these third world countries don't have the same testing that like the US has. So a lot of them that's why a lot of them think that some people are juicing just because they're really strict on like Americans and versus other third world countries where the testing cannot be
the
as thorough.
The pressure to dope in the East African countries, I would say, is higher because the incentive is higher.
And I mean, these guys, they're living. This is a real third world country. Like these guys are living like. Well, and running can be like one of the only ways out of that level of poverty. So
the winner of Boston gets like over $100,000 if they win.
Yeah.
And so like in a third world country, that changes your entire lifestyle. And so,
do you know what the top 1% of what you have to make to earn, be part of the top 1% earners in the world?
I don't think I can fathom.
You want to guess? Let's get some guesses. I'll have both of you guys guess. Let's see how far off you guys are.
If you're trying to be in the top 1%
of the world.
For what?
So just keep in mind.
And what number?
I think the top 1% of the U.S. is extremely high, and I think that's like at 345,000. But we're not talking U.S. We're talking
worldwide,
including
like Dubai,
third world countries, but also including like third world countries.
So, are we guessing like the annual year that they? Okay, it's got.
Do you want to go first?
Repeat it again.
What's the average salary that a person has to make to be considered a top 1% earner in the world?
I don't think it's a lot, dude.
It's not.
Because you're considering like all these other countries. I just don't know the number.
Give me a guess. This is a game, dude. Come on, dude.
Million.
No. For the top 1%. No. Yeah. The US is 345. So this is
a lot of what I've always heard is if you have a roof,
120 then.
A roof.
No.
If you eat.
That's high.
Oh, really?
If you have a roof, if you have a car, if you eat, you're already on the top 1%. You're already in that 1%, right?
Really?
Because a lot of the majority of like the world doesn't have that. So it's like that's what they say. Oh, be grateful for what you have, because you don't understand that other people are just they're making like pennies a day. So it's like
a lot. And another reason why some of these African runners are so good is because a lot of these have to walk miles for clean water. Like
Yeah.
these guys don't have clean water.
Yeah, they I will say this, they definitely are the hardest working people I've met in athletics, in like livelihood, like, and they're always super friendly. Like
Yeah.
typically, like I can only really speak about the runners that I've met from them. Like they're very friendly, they're very like mild mannered, like they're super nice people.
Well, since you guys weren't really good guessers, I guess I'll just tell you guys. But the top 1% earners you have to earn $32,500 to be considered a top 1% earner in the world.
That's crazy.
Kind of what I figured. I was gonna guess more like 40 something, but I wasn't sure.
So just to give you that perspective, if you come home with $100K,
Dang.
that's a ton of money. That's life changing money for some people.
John's waving us down.
Oh, no.
Oh.
we're already in an hour. We're in already.
What were you gonna guess?
I was going to guess
Between
Okay.
20 and 40
Yeah, that's why I was like
grams.
40. Because I've heard, like, honestly, I've heard that they say if you have a house, a roof over your table, you go home in a car, you're already in that 1%,
Mhm.
and that's usually just standard.
that's
Nothing big.
not even-
I'm curious though, what type of running shoe do you use? Is there a favorite shoe do you
What
have?
shoe don't I use, man? Favorite shoe. Okay. So depends on the run. So if I'm doing my shakeout run, I'm in the Nike Invincibles. But by the way, I'm not sponsored by anyone, so I just happen to be in Nike right now.
Mhm.
So for my recovery runs and my warm ups, I'll be in like the Nike Invincible. It's this really thick, heavy cushion recovery shoe. It's great for like if my muscles are super tired and I just need I need to get the miles in, but I also need to like recover. On my like normal recovery run, I'm in like the Nike Pegs, and so and I'm usually in the newest edition of whatever they are, unless the newest edition is garbage, then I'm switching to a different shoe. And then when I'm racing or doing like interval work, I'm in the Vaporflies.
Okay. Is there like an overrated shoe or a shoe that you would kind of stay away from?
The Streak Fly.
Streak fly?
Yeah, so the Nike Streak Fly, it's like their road 5K, 10K racer. It's got like a nylon plate, and it's like the support in it is just awful.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
some people love it and it works well for them, but like it was I break down the shoe way too quick.
Yeah. Okay.
I was gonna ask how long shoes last, because you can be running 85 to 95 miles a week.
If I wear one pair of shoes, if I take the same pair of shoes and wore them every day, I would be done with that pair in 3 weeks.
Oh damn.
And so I probably I buy my shoes in sets. So I'll buy 2 pairs of Pegasus, a pair of Invincibles, and I'll supplement the Vaporflies as I need them. And then and I usually can get those 3 pairs of training shoes to last maybe 2 months, 3 if I really push it. But I got to be careful with pushing that 3rd month. And so if you take 3 times 4, that's like 12 pairs of shoes a year.
When you were running for Corban, were those free shoes?
No.
You guys don't get shoes in
We don't get
college?
shoes in college either. Yeah. No.
Damn.
No. NII, man. We don't.
Damn.
Dude, I remember when you bought your running shoes like 5 years ago. You still use them, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know. I was like, dude, come on.
Yep.
I mean, how often do you change like cleats playing soccer? Like,
I don't play soccer. How often do you change your cleats when you were
quite
playing?
a bit, dude. I still play. I mean, I teach them quite a bit.
Yeah.
My indoor shoes.
yeah, it really depends on how often you use them too, right? Like, if you're going for a run like every 3 days, you can get away with like replacing that shoe in 3 months. 5 years is a bit of a stretch, though.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying.
No, I used to run with Nikes, and I've used Pegasus, and I think Pegasus were really like the nicest Nike running shoes that I used. But I just did not like them.
Well, yeah, and
They
so
were very uncomfortable.
and they don't
hurt.
they're not for everyone.
And
As much as companies will say that, like, oh, our running shoe is perfect for everyone, they're not.
No.
They're very particular to certain types of people.
What was my last pair of running shoes? Were they Aces or what were they?
I don't know, dude.
I think they were Aces,
No,
and those were like the most comfortable shoes that I've
Asics are great. I've ran
in.
Asics before too. I like those
Um,
as well. Like when I am not in Nike, that's usually the next brand I go to is Asics.
Asics.
My wife just bought me some running shoes like probably like 6 months ago, and they were like the
Have you
white.
pulled them out of the box yet?
Yeah, the wide open. No, not the wide open. the
White toe.
The white toe.
Yeah.
What do you think about those? Like, a lot of people say that don't wear like the narrow ones because your feet are just crap.
It depends.
Okay.
It depends how fat your foot is, son. Maybe you have to have a white foot.
Yeah, I mean, when you're fitting a shoe,
Mhm.
you usually want like a thumb's like width. So like
Mhm.
if you take your thumb, you usually want one width or maybe a width and a half from the front of the shoe to your big toe or whatever toe is the longest. And then you want it to be snug but not tight on the sides. And so for me, like I did not get my dad's flipper feet, which is kind of nice. But my toes and my the ball of my feet are wider than my heel. So I get a lot of heel slips. So I have to tie my shoes a certain way in order to keep them from sliding. But the width of the ball of my foot doesn't warrant getting a wide shoe because I don't need a wide shoe because I need a snugger fit around the side. So it's about just making sure what's comfortable. If it feels like super tight and you can't get like enough blood flow to your feet, you probably need a wider shoe.
No, I just over time I've heard that, and this is just kind of like what people talk about, like the signs that humans are not meant to have shoes that you're always, they're always kind of like more narrow, Nike and Adidas, that people or humans should always be just naturally. So the shoes that she bought were for running, but they were just more wide on the edges, but like for more comfort in a way.
Yeah. So, and like the best way to combat that really is it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Like in my opinion, in my experience, it doesn't really matter. But if you are worried about foot strength and like your feet splaying out, like the way they're supposed to, like, yes, they are right. Like our feet are naturally meant to like splay out and grab the ground and be more opposable than what they actually are. But the best way is just walk around barefoot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's simple as that.
Yeah.
I mean, don't go downtown Salem barefoot. That's probably not the best advice. But,
True.
But like in your house,
on a needle, dude.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, if you're like in the house, like I don't wear shoes, I don't wear socks, I don't wear anything that's restrictive because I like my feet to splay out. And plus, I don't like things on my feet, which is interesting because I'm spending hours a day in running shoes. Yeah.
Have you ever bought shoes from a running store?
Me?
From a running store?
Yeah.
Me? No. I don't think so.
Never have you bought shoes from a running store?
Yeah, I used to work in a running store.
I'm gonna go on a rant right now. Let me know if you guys hate this too, but I freaking hate going into a running store and buying new shoes. Like going forward, I'm just gonna go to like a regular, like if Aces, I'm gonna go to an Aces stores because I hate going in there and then I'm like I want to get a pair of running shoes and then like for me that I'm not like a pro athlete, I want to go in there and I want to look at the shoe. If I like how the shoe physically looks, I want to try it on. And then I want to try it on. And if it's comfortable, I'll take a couple steps and I'm good. Let me buy the freaking shoe.
Sure.
But no, I go into a freaking running store and these guys are like, oh, try on the shoes, jog over there, run over here. And then I'm like so embarrassed going in there. I feel like when my wife goes with my daughter to buy new shoes and she hypes her up to like run across the...
Doing like a catwalk.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm freaking 30 years old. Don't tell me.
I'll say this. Like, yeah, I get it. It's a little funky. And when I went into the running stores, when I first started going, it was a little weird, right? Because like, and then like I had one store, it's like, yeah, go outside, go run on the concrete. Like, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm wearing your shoes,
like, no,
right?
I want to buy these. Like, oh no, run. I'm like, dude.
And so that could just be like the salesman, right? Like, like trying to, like that could be just the person that you're working with. And so like I get it. But there's a reason why they do that. It's because they want to make sure that like the shoe feels comfortable. Like when it comes down to running, like it really shouldn't matter what the shoe looks like. No one cares what's on your feet. Like yeah, you see, like you may be worried about like the style or it may be look good. I mean, look good, feel good, run good, right? Like,
and I think the difference is like I said, I'm not a pro athlete. Yeah. I'm nowhere near that. So for me, I want to buy a nice pair of running shoes that maybe I can throw on with a pair of jeans or with a pair of shorts too. And if I want to go out to the grocery store, I can throw on my running shoes too to go out there.
You just want comfort shoes.
I just want comfort shoes.
Well, get the old man shoes, dude. Get the old man shoes then.
What are the old man shoes?
Dude,
I don't know.
buy some Hey Dudes.
I don't know what that is.
It's like it's like a loafer.
I like loafers.
Yeah, hey dude should be perfect for that,
Yeah.
right? Because like you could run a little bit in them, but I wouldn't go on a run in them. Like they're great like slip-ons that you can just like go to the store in, right? But if you're like trying to have something that's a little more fashionable, just buy a fashion pair of tennis shoes.
These are going to be more quick questions.
Okay.
Give me 3 tips to how to run faster.
Run tall. Do some strides after every other run or every run, whatever you choose, like just 100 meters. Not all out. Like it doesn't have to be a fast 100 meters. Just do something a little faster. And then don't overtrain. That'd probably be the top 3.
Don't overtrain.
Another way to interpret that is like just recover. Like make sure you focus on recovery because recovering will help you do harder sessions better.
Okay. So someone that's never ran a mile.
Okay.
What's the best way to getting into running a mile?
Run a mile. Not all out. Don't race it. Run a mile. Just enjoy it. Go out. It should almost be like a walk. Just get out, do a mile. Doesn't have to be fast. You don't have to run the whole thing. Just do a mile.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Nike.
Okay. What would you say the correct way to run up a hill, and what's the correct way to run down a hill?
Use your arms. Both cases. So I guess going back to that, like you can break running down to one motion, moving your arms, right? Your legs are going to do what your arms tell you. So if you can if you use your arms, your legs will follow. And so if you pump in your arms, your legs will do the same thing. It's going to suck. You kind of have to lean into it. It's going to hurt. But that's running up a hill. It's going to hurt everyone. Running up a hill, like typically I will surge a hill. It's not like I'm going all out, but I will run I'll give a little harder effort going up the hill just because I want it done sooner. And if you can do that all the way to the crest, every time you run up a hill, it's going to help your mental, psychological, like brain, which was kind of redundant and not coherent, but you get the point. Like it's going to help you mentally get over the hill every time. It's going to help you run faster because you're training your body to push past the hard bits and even past like when it gets easy. So if you can train your body to do that, like it's going to help a lot. It's going to help you run faster. But then also like just I personally like attack the hill a little bit, like not a ton to where I'm like dying, especially if I'm on a recovery and I'm just going to run up the hill. Like I'm not trying to get up there fast. I'm not trying to go up there slow.
What if you're in a run though?
If I'm on like a race?
Yeah, race, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm surging that hill. Like
Okay.
I'm not like full on going at it, but like I'm putting a harder effort into the uphill and over the crest than I would be on like a flat. And then when going downhill, those will destroy your quads. Like it's like and your shins too, but like your quads is what feels more because you're stomping, you're braking, you're trying to prevent yourself from falling over. And so really it's just gonna be a controlled deceleration. And so like if you use your arms and typically like depending on the severity of the hill, like my arm, like I look like I look crazy because I look like a crazy man just running down the hill because my arms are almost flailing. Like I do arm circles almost. And that will kind of help you maintain balance. And I'm just trying to get down the hill without destroying anything. And so if you can just try to get down the hill easy, you're going to set yourself up better for later on in a race.
And you said you have a race coming up next week. That's going to be for a full marathon?
It's going to be a half, actually.
A half marathon.
Yeah, and so it's the U.S. half champs. And so this is the first time they've done like actual like standard to get into it. And so you have to run a certain time in order to get into the race. And this is actually my half marathon debut. And so I actually qualified for this race with my full marathon time. And that's how I'm able to race my debut at a championship.
I know that you had said, and you've been posting a lot more videos on Instagram about your long-term goal. The long-term goal that would be beating the All-American marathon record.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you said that's like an 8 to 10 year goal.
Yeah, it's a long goal. It's not even one that I can't say for certain that I would be able to do it. Like it's one of those things like it's like you shoot for the stars, you might hit the moon,
For
right?
sure.
And I like the competitor in me says, yeah, I'm going to do it no matter what, I'm going to die trying. Right. But like the realistic side of things, like I may get super close.
Yeah.
And for someone like me who went to a small school in California, who went to an NAIA school, to come close to the American record is a feat in itself. And so I wholeheartely believe that I can do it just because I'm competitive, and I'm very thankful for the people who support me along the way. It's going to be a very long journey. I might not do it until I'm 38.
Just to also let our viewers know, what besides the race that you have next week, is there any local races that you're planning on running in the next year that maybe people can look out for? I guess local would be within the next an hour from here.
The Ironman race?
No. I sink like a rock. I can't swim. As far as local goes, I'll do occasional track meets here in Portland. There's the Portland Track Festival, which is usually held at Lewis and Clark College in Beaverton, and that's one I usually do pretty consistently. I don't really do anything in Eugene all that much. Salem is kind of a running community, but not a big one. I might do a home meet at Corban. Just because that's my alma mater, and I'm super supportive of the program. But as far as local meets, most of them are going to be in Portland, and those will be in the summer too.
In the summer, do you have any running goals this year? I know that you've been focusing a lot on the gym last 6 months, 8 months, but you have any? I don't think you really mentioned anything about running. I know you don't really care for running, but
no, I mean, anytime I go to the gym, I run a mile, no matter what. I run or walk, depending on the mood that I am, but I have to, and then. Depending on where I'm at, I do 2 miles, but no less than a mile and no more than 2 miles. And then after that, I just do stretching and just quiet workouts. When you get older, it's hard.
And then you get busy too.
Yeah, but it's not just about being busy, but it's more difficult.
Here's one thing I would say too, for anyone who has a goal, I'm gonna run 5 miles every day. Consistency isn't doing the same thing every day. I mean, it is to an extent, but it's not necessarily the same quantity. So consistency is just showing up, right? Doing the activity of whatever it is, at least. So if your goal, right, is if you're at the fitness level where you run 5 miles every day and you can do that, and that's your goal, great, do that. If that's your idea of consistency. But if you're someone who's just wanting to get out and run, and your goal is to just run, no one cares how far it is. What we care about and what we like to see is how you just get out and do it every day. You just get out and you go run, because you're on your own journey, and everyone who's in the sport is going to be just as supportive of it as anyone else. You think of it this way, a 6-minute mile and a 4:30 mile are the same difficulty. They're just as far. It's just as far and it's just as hard.
I mean, it is. That's what it is. So, you have any goals? Fitness goals?
I started running again. I've never done a half a marathon, dude. I think I want to do a half a marathon.
That'd be fun.
Eugene's in May. I don't know if it's full yet, but
May. That might be too soon.
It's almost soon.
What is it? February, March, April, May. 3 months.
That's
maybe we can make it do it in 3 months.
If you can get out, if you can do 30 miles a week, work up to it. If you can do 30 miles a week, you'd be able to complete it.
Yeah, that's 3 months should be fine. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you'll see me do a half a marathon in 3 months.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Go to Portland, do what do they have in Portland? The naked run or?
Oh hell no! You ain't catching me there, guys.
Wear a mask, dude. Wear a mask and run. No one's gonna recognize you.
There you go. If y'all are interested in the naked run, DM Jorge and he'll give you the info on that. How can people find you?
So the best way to follow along and to support my journey would be follow me through Instagram. So my handle is it used to be at that Salem Runner with underscores. I recently changed it back to my old handle, which is at Rob_Swoboda, which I realize might be a little hard for some of you to spell. So we might put that in the show notes.
I can't even say it, and you expect me to spell it?
You know, it feels like a Star Wars name, no? Swoboda? No?
I don't know. Here's an interesting fun fact. In Russian, it means freedom.
Freedom.
Really?
It's the literal translation to freedom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Swoboda.
Fun fact.
There you go.
There we go. Well, thank you guys.
Next episode.
Take care.